Alright, I had a really good question involving blade play and my Conquest Tactical Out the Front Fury. Now, I've got different series and styles of knives because I wanted to demonstrate blade play. Now, blade play is very common in any knife that's not a fixed blade. Alright, so for example, one of my favorite knives, of course, is my Buck El Moro. And whenever you have a fixed blade knife, it is simply fixed because there's no play in it. I mean, you can get a really thin spine knife that may have a bending that some people will call play, but this knife is going to be a perfect example of zero blade play. Now, from the most blade play on these knives to the least amount of blade play on anything that's not a fixed blade. Now first, this is a peasant knife, and I will be doing a review about this knife later. I haven't got to it yet, but it's one of the many knives that I own. It's a simple knife that's an old design that when we talk about blade play, this style knife is going to have wiggle, but it's also going to move in pretty much every direction. Twisting the handle. It's an inexpensive knife, but it's meant to be a throwback design, so you expect that. In the next sequence, friction lock. Y'all have seen this one before in a previous video. Knives of Alaska model 400. You're going to get blade play because the blade does not engage and stick in place. It simply is friction locked. Now, I want to go skip the OTF and move on up. Now this is a spine lock. It's my Buck 110. It's a good example, but watch. You actually do get a little bit, tiny bit of blade play the way this knife is designed. And it's okay, you can tell that even though it's really stout, I can still move that knife just a little bit. Now my Cricket Jettison 6130 frame lock, very good, but still tiny bit. I can move the blade just in the slightest, okay? So we're moving on up. My ProTech Half-Breed. Now this is an assisted opening knife, but the way it locks is different from all these style knives. So with this one, I get a little bit of blade play, okay, but not a lot. So how does that compare to my OTF? I have my OTF in between my back lock and my standard friction lock because an OTF will come out and it's designed, it goes in a track. But when it's out, notice there's a little bit of blade play here and not a whole lot there. That's because with the design of this knife, the opening, it's supposed to have it where the knife can go in and out the track without binding. But when it's out, there's a little bit of blade play. That's normal with OTFs. Every OTF I own has blade play in it. But with this model, compared to some of the others, it feels like the blade is deeper into the handle. Some of the OTFs I have that where the lockup is, most of the lockup mechanism is in the very top of the handle, so you get almost a bending motion, but this knife has very little blade play. Again, acceptable, okay? Because when we're comparing these knives, this peasant knife, more of a collector's knife. Obviously, it's not going to fit very well in the pocket with the length. Alright, this is a throwback design, okay? It's intended to be a gentleman's knife in the pocket. This blade is a traditional Skinner hunter knife, so you're going to have a little bit of blade play, but it should lock in place. And a standard personal defense knife, okay? Very little, but you're also intended to hold the knife like this, so it's a different design. Every one of these knives has a purpose and ultimately has a little bit of blade play, apart from your fixed blade. Would I consider this by all means acceptable? Yeah, this blade doesn't, that's my watch by the way rattling, not the knife. Now like this, no rattle. Like that, no rattle, okay? So these knives will have a slight bit of blade play. But again, I consider that acceptable. Now, its intended use, it works just fine. So, when I talk about knives and talk about blade play and quality, every one of these knives has its own ups and downs, its quirks, but every one of them is interesting in its own way. Again, sometimes it's just about collecting. Sometimes it's about self-defense. Sometimes it's about being an everyday carry. And sometimes it's about being just a stout workhorse. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this answers any questions that anyone may have. Good luck, and I hope you find a knife you're looking for. Happy hunting. Thank you.